Welcome to Becoming Fearless, the personal growth podcast for you if you are ready to overcome fear and step into your greatness. Our purpose is to help you overcome your limits, have loads of fun along the way, unlocking your fullest potential in life, business, health and relationships every single day. I'm your host, Charlotte Carter, a high-performance coach and entrepreneur with over 20 years' experience. I've supported many highly driven, talented people like you who dream big and are ready to take action to overcome what's holding them back. Each week, my guests and I will be sharing hacks and habits on how to build self-belief, courage and confidence to master your mindset and navigate your emotions so that you can reach your human potential in a way that feels light, fun and easeful and helps you become fearless. Let's go. Hello and welcome to another episode of Becoming Fearless. This is a guest episode with somebody who I kind of like to call my podcast buddy because we both brought our podcasts out on exactly the same day. We didn't know that was going to happen. We just both brought them out in March earlier on this year, and we just kind of supported each other through the journey. And I'm going to go on Nicola's podcast and she is here on mine. So it's like a mutual getting in the ears of the masses in the way that we share our words of wisdom with people. So without further ado, Nick, just introduce yourself and let people know a little bit about what you do.
Thank you. And it's really great to be here. And I absolutely do think about you as my podcast buddy, Charlotte, because it's just been such an amazing journey to bring the podcast to the world, hasn't it? So I'm Nicola Tonsager and I work primarily with the energy of soul through a channeled representation of it called soul signatures, which help us to understand the soul experience within life with the aim that we are more freely, more fully us with greater levels of belief, confidence and trust so that we can really live as fully in life to enable soul to actualize as fully as it can through us. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's you in a human phraseology, so people can understand. So I remember possibly a couple of years ago when we were in a space together, and I asked you to look at my soul signatures. Do you remember?
I do. I do remember them. Yeah.
So for people that are listening, this is quite an interesting conversation we're going to have, because I've changed my business name multiple times. People know that I've had Suffolk Life Coaching Clinic, then I've had Charlotte Carter Coaching, then I've had High Performance Activator, and now I am absolutely sticking to I Dare to Leap. And I think when I came working with Nick on this particular, can you help me with this particular piece, one of the things that come through, and I will always remember it massively, is that you're not going to stick with the same thing. One of the pieces in your energy is that you're always going to evolve, you're always going to change, there's a real flexibility and a fluidity with you. And I remember that, and it was like a permission piece for me, especially as I kept changing the name. And I was like, this one's not right. I Dare to Leap is 100% right. I won't change that now. And my soul's journey, my soul's promise with Nick's help that you probably didn't even remember, allowed me to just keep going till I got to the right iteration that was right for me. Is that kind of part of the work that you do with people, this like cleansing, clearing, or do some people come into your world and they are absolutely, I really want to help with this, and you start from ground zero? Or the people like me where I'm like, I find at that stage I'm different now, but I was finding my way and you helped me find my path?
I think, to be honest, it's a case of both. So I think there is a ground zero, and that ground zero is usually people are not quite sure what they're looking for and they're not quite sure what they want, but they know something has got to shift. And there's a feeling and there's a knowing that has to come from within, which, as we know, is the only thing that really shifts in a big way. So that is kind of the ground zero. So they've really got no idea what they're embarking upon. But there's a knowing and there's a feeling that it's right for them. And then that's a process, and there might be working with soul signatures, and there might be some mentoring and some coaching in that as well. But then you have people that do have a level of understanding. They have done quite a lot of inner work, but they're ready to take a leap, and they're ready to commit more fully to the person they really want to become, the person that they know inside is really waiting to emerge. And that's a slightly different level of work. It's not a different level of commitment, because I think we still commit to that journey, but it's a real willingness to leap. And it is a real willingness to trust in the really illogical stuff, the stuff that doesn't seem as though it makes sense at the time. And soul signatures give you the permission piece to know that it's the experience of soul that is guiding you into that place where you're leaping.
They're a great springboard, I think, for people to start to develop their kind of faith around soul, in my experience. So let's rewind in life, in our human existence, in this life. What kind of led you into this work, and where did it all start for you? Because it's such a fascinating topic, isn't it? I think everybody has a story around it. But I know from some things that I know about you that this hasn't always, it didn't just land on your lap and it was all easy breezy. Let people know a little bit about kind of like your background and what brought you to the moment of realizing that actually your soul's mission is to do the work that you're doing now.
So I don't think that there was a realization that when I first experienced soul, that was my soul mission. I think there was a real curiosity there. And that curiosity led me to explore different things that brought me to this space. But I think, like most people, everybody has a backstory. I haven't met a single person that doesn't have a backstory in some way, shape, or form. And I suppose the most significant shift or opening for me, depending which way you look at it, is when I was really in a place where I couldn't go forward. I was in a state of depression. I'd been through some challenges within life, and with hindsight, what had happened as a child, you have those moments where, you're told, oh, Nicola, you're so emotional. You're so emotional. And as a child, I'd learned to shut down my emotions. And so I hit this period of life where I was on my own. I was living life. I was doing all the work. I had the day job and all of that sort of thing that you're meant to be doing. I'd moved away from home. I was living in London. And I didn't know how to be myself. And I had no idea who I was, actually. And what that did was it led me to really become very depressed, and really to be chronically depressed, to the extent that I could get up and I could go to work. And that took everything that I had to do that. So I got home and I was just empty. There was nothing left. And I think it just got progressively worse and progressively worse. And I ended up being on my living room floor one evening, really knowing that I couldn't go on. I was in such a bad space that I didn't know what to do. I knew I couldn't go on the way that I was. And at that point in time, the only outcome was for there not to be a tomorrow. And at that particular place, I think I was just crying from everything that I was, to say, please help me, because if there wasn't any help, then I just didn't know what to do. And in that moment, I felt something lift within me that I've never experienced before. And I knew I was held. And it was like this whole energy just moved through me. I didn't know what it was, but I knew in that moment I would be okay. And I made it through that night. And nothing shifted overnight, but I suddenly saw a light at the end of the tunnel, and I knew I would be okay. And that really led me to explore my energy more. It led me to look at energy, and it led me to start to explore what that might be. And a couple of years later, I was doing a meditation because I'd gone to the College of Psychic Studies and joined this course with a lady called Tracy Ashingley. And I was doing this meditation where we were working with the chakras, and I felt that experience again. And at that moment, I knew it was soul. And And so that suddenly something clicked, and suddenly I knew, and I'd heard about soul, I'd heard about, a bit our soul, and it was very conceptual. But at that moment, I knew it was actually something that was real and that was in me. And that opened the door to me being more curious, although I was exploring a very spiritual path at that point in time. And I started to delve into crystals, and I started to work with energy in that way. And I had quite strong experiences and very strong spiritual experiences. There was a part of me that was always curious about the actual tangible experience that I'd had that had happened from within me. So I saw spirituality, I think, at that point in time as stuff that happened outside of myself. So I picked up a crystal and I felt it. I went up to spirit and I had the experience. I explored Reiki and I was feeling energy from outside of myself come into me and move through me. But that experience of soul actually happened within me. And that's where the real curiosity came. And I think all of my path, when I look back, has been exploring actually what that means to me, how I understand it, and giving me a sense of confidence, but also a sense of understanding of who we are as individuals, and that the individuality of who we are really matters and helps us to play a part in the whole, in the collective. So that was a real turning point for me. There have been other bits and pieces, but it was that curiosity about the tangibility of the experience I had, and I knew it to be real. There was no doubt.
I love this. So let's explore for the listeners around like this kind of feeling, this inner feeling, in your words. For people listening, everybody's going to experience this kind of thing differently. That's part of our unique way of being. But are there any kind of inclinations or commonalities that people listening go, oh, actually, I might have had like a little tiny bit of that, but I ignored it, or I might have experienced a piece of that, but I'm not sure, so that they can start to provoke their curiosity to lean into themselves more?
Yeah. So as you're talking, I'm feeling the energy move through me. So I think first of all, it's a feeling. It's not intuition. I don't see soul as intuition. I see intuition as the voice of soul. So it's a way we can understand it if we don't actually tangibly feel the energy of soul. But for me, it's two things. First of all, it is a feeling. So it is something that starts to lift, that starts to energize from the sacral area, and there is a feeling that comes with it. So it might be a wave through the body, it might be a ripple through the body, but it's something that lifts, and there's a feeling with that. So you feel it. And the other thing is you know it. And the know it is something that vibrates all the way through you. So there's no doubt, there's no hesitation. In the moment, you feel that sense of it with such certainty that even though the rational mind says, no idea what that is, you know it to be absolute truth for you. And it doesn't matter how it comes to you. It doesn't matter what it's talking about. It doesn't matter the situation or circumstance you're in. There is such a sense of knowing that moves through all of you, and you can't doubt it.
And I've experienced that many times. It's so interesting, isn't it, this knowing piece, because the rational mind likes to come in. Like, I just know this. I don't know how I'm going to make it happen. I don't know any of the how. I don't even know. I know you're going to think it doesn't make sense or anything like that. There's always, I remember for me, a lot of my knowing at first was just so out there. It wasn't going to be a part of, if I even dared to say it to anyone, it was just like, what's going on with you? It was just real extreme in some other people's minds, like, what are you talking about? What do you mean you just feel that? And it's quite hard to describe, I think, for me personally, because it's so 100%, isn't it? There's like, it's unshakable. There's no way it's the certainty is off the scale, and you just like, yeah, that's it. You can think what you want, but that's just it for me.
Yeah, and it is that absolute. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. It doesn't matter what the rational mind says after the experience. The truth is so strong, so solid, so certain in the experience that it just leaves no hesitation whatsoever. Yeah.
And it's really interesting, isn't it, when you are, or if people are listening and they've experienced this, and I know this has been a little bit of my journey, I've experienced it and then I've popped out of it. So I've been in it and it's like, yes, this is it, right? I'm gonna absolutely embody it, act on it, follow what I'm called to do, should we say? And then for some reason, I then pop out of it. Is that kind of a standard pattern for people when they're first learning?
I think so, and I think because if we talk about energy as a whole and we talk about embodiment, you have that experience, and that experience is a snapshot and a moment within that energetic alignment of who you are. But then you have life, and you have to learn to hold that feeling. You have to hold that certainty. You have to hold that belief. And then you start to align to whatever that feeling is, whatever it's asking you to do, whatever it's asking you to step into. You have to realign to that level of frequency, and you have to align to that path that it's asking you to actually hold. And it starts to embody through you. So it starts to embody through you on a mental level, emotional level, a physical level. So you do step out of it. I don't ever believe that you feel that connection 100% of the time, all the time, because actually we use different parts of ourselves in different ways. But it's that ability over a period of time to come into that alignment and really feel the truth of something, or alternatively to recognize that actually, no, that isn't quite right. So maybe there is a way that I'm not connecting in. Maybe I'm not quite aligned. Maybe I'm not quite grounded. But definitely there's a movement out. And I think it's a bit like the carrot, isn't it? Where the carrot is dangled and you know it and you can see it and you can touch it and you can feel it, but then you have to reach it. And for me, that's what it is.
And I think for me, in my experience, there's been like a real piece of, and this is probably how I embodied it, is that it was what I realized for more was what was falling away when I was in it. So what was not serving me, the places where I definitely know, no, that's not right for me, that particular space isn't right, or that opportunity isn't right. I knew more of the negatives or the no's or what I was releasing before I kind of like anchored more into the certainty, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense, because once you've had that experience and you start to experience it more, you go into spaces or you go into experiences or you think about aspects of your life or aspects of yourself or aspects of your business that actually no longer feel right. And I think for me, that's twofold. One, it's a sense of you are realigning to what is for you and what's right for you moving forward. So, what you're letting go of might have been right for you last year, but you've shifted, it isn't anymore. But then there's also that willingness to actually start to be more self-aware and to start to recognize how you align and where you do align and where you don't align. And the willingness then to think, actually, that doesn't feel right anymore. And maybe I'm not quite sure why, but I just know it's not right. So I'm going to let it go. I'm going to step away.
There's like a real journey of trust, isn't there? I know the journey that you and I have been on. There's a 100%. Real and trust seems like too soft a word, but it is like, it's trust on multiple levels, isn't it? In multiple realms, in multiple ways. And I think what happens for a lot of people that I speak with about this kind of energetic space, should we say, is that all of their relationships change because ultimately their relationship with themselves has changed. So some of their behaviors and the version and the identity of them is so different, isn't it? And I think that's sometimes what's, sometimes this work is not always easy at first, is it? Until you start getting into the real gems and the magic, and then you're like, oh my goodness, it is so good. But at first it can feel quite bumpy, can't it?
Yeah, it can, I think, because everything changes around us, and society and often our families and the education system, and they all teach us actually to step away from who we are and to seek an external validation. And I think unconsciously, most of us do that through our relationships in our early years as well. So that ability to actually understand who you are first of all, is a really big thing, and really connect into that, and also connect into that underneath the roles that we play. So, yes, we're a daughter. Yes, you're a mum. Yes, you're a sister. Yes, you're a wife. Yes, you're a partner. Yes, you're a businesswoman. Yes, you're an employee. So you have those roles, but actually, who is a Charlotte? Who is a Nick? Who are you underneath all of those roles? And really starting to identify with that. And of course, once you know, you can't then unknow. So once you know that something needs to shift, it's that knock that keeps coming back and you can't ignore it. And so you do shift, and you have to relearn aspects of yourself, and you also start to have to peel off the layers of who you never were in the first place to get back to the you that's actually trying to emerge and the you that's actually calling. And then, of course, the people that we know start to see a different version of who we are. And sometimes they're able to move forward with that because they shift and they grow as well. And sometimes it's not. And there's a disconnection there that, however challenging that might be, it still nevertheless becomes difficult not to lean into your own truth and follow the path that you know that's right for you, because you start to really understand that empowerment starts from you, and it starts from you leading your own path and actually leading yourself.
And I think so much goodness in what you've just said. I really resonate with this piece around you kind of carry your own momentum, or that's what's happened with me. Everything's changed around me, like everything, but my inner compass, soul, momentum piece for me, that's how I phrase it. Momentum pieces. I've been able to gather my trust, gather my ownership, gather my personal responsibility, gather all my high performance phrases and pieces, because that's a part of who I am. But then the alignment and the energetic space has been able to allow me to carry this momentum. Because what was happening for me, and I'm sure people might have had this, is that they get so far in this journey and then they're not sure what's next, and then they're thinking, is there a big breakthrough? And what, sometimes there's a momentum piece for me about the work's never done, is it? So it's like knowing your ebbs and flows and allowing yourself grace in that space.
Yeah, and allowing the fact that it's a journey. So you're right, the work is never done. And it's like you reach a certain destination, or what you feel is a destination, and suddenly, there is another potential in front of you. There is another journey that starts to unfold in front of you. And within all of that, we still live life. We're still humans. We still have things that we have to do. We still have relationships that we're part of. We still have things that impact and influence us. And when I think about alignment, I think about alignment as a consistent realignment, because we're consistently realigning to who we are evolving into, which means that as our energy shifts, there are those moments where either we don't feel quite aligned and we have to step back a little bit, or we just have to pause because we know there's an energy shift and we have to allow things to settle, and we have to allow that alignment to start to come into flow in the right way to take us forward. And I think sometimes when we get on the journey, we think once we're on it, it's like a rocket ship that goes forward and never stops. And I think sometimes when that doesn't happen, we can think there's something wrong or there's something missing, and we've done something wrong, or perhaps we've missed a step, or we've missed a doorway, or we haven't understood something. But it's coming back in and really feeling the connection and the certainty within yourself, and knowing that you are on the right path, even if at this moment in time, the externals are not necessarily demonstrating the connection, the trust, the feeling, the certainty that you actually have within you at that moment in time.
I love that. I love how you've explained that. And I think one of my experiences in this journey, it has been around every reiteration, should we say, every reiteration of me has been different. And there was a version of me that thought, oh, well, I've got the tools. It'll be the same thing. I'll be able to move through it quicker. I know what I'll do. I'll get in the ice bath. I'll do all my hacks. I'll do all the things. And each one has been really different. Physically, it's been really different. How I show up. It's taught me something different. Every single thing. And I think that was one of the biggest awareness pieces for me. It's like, I love this journey and I'm really curious and excited about what's coming. And I also trust that whatever it is going to be the right thing for me at the time, the right lesson.
Yeah. And I also think there's an aspect, as you're talking, what's coming to my mind, Charlotte, is that there's an aspect of recognizing that as we know ourselves, there's so much of us that we don't yet know, or we haven't really allowed to step forward. So there's that aspect of, if you like, allowing more of your essence to come through, allowing more of who you really are to come through. But in that process, there's a total shift in identity every single time. But also there's the recognition that there's so much of you that as you're stepping forward that you don't know and is maybe not who you expected, and so there has to be an openness to be curious, and there has to be a willingness to explore not just the journey but really explore what's rising within you to allow yourself to step forward in the way that you know that you need to. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I'm surprised that I've managed to stay sitting on my chair with this conversation. It's like I'm feeling all the rising. I've really grounded myself. So let's talk about how you help people. Let people know if they've been listening, they're like, oh my goodness, this is so curious. I'd love to know more. This is kind of my vibe. I really want to get into an opportunity of a conversation with Nick. What are the ways that you can help people? Because I know you've got some really great ways to help people.
So everything focuses around soul signatures. So that's my starting point for everybody. And what I would say from a soul perspective is that I really don't see soul as a sole purpose. So we might feel as though we have a mission. You might feel as though you have a mission, and you might feel as though you're really on purpose within yourself. But I really see soul as an experience. So it's an experience that asks you to move deeper into both who you are, but also to move deeper into the experience of that unfolding of soul within you, because ultimately soul wants to actualize within the human experience. And if it did, if it was fully actualized through every single person here, the world would change overnight.
Yeah.
So for me, that's the aim. So soul signatures help you to understand the experience. They help you to understand the path and the growth in the moment, and they help you understand the challenge and the learning in the moment. So I tend to work in group programs, or I tend to work from a one-to-one perspective, and it's really helping you to unfold everything that you're not, so that you really start to lean into who you are, and so that you start to make sense for you, because that's also important, because and there is a permission piece in that. There is a permission piece that enables you to actually be who you are, rather than feel as though you have to fit in. But it is also about looking at the mindset, which I know is a big thing for you as well, and looking at the beliefs. So there's a real blend of both the energetics and actually understanding what the energetics are for you, but then also looking at the beliefs that are stopping you moving forward in the way that you know is right for you. Yeah.
And then you've also got your certification, haven't you?
I have, and that is a really big thing, actually. Yeah. So part of my journey, really, since I started working with soul signatures, which are entirely channeled. So when we talk about dare to leap, that for me was a really big leap, and it was really leaning into absolute trust in terms of bringing them forward. Not just for me to work with, but actually for other people to learn how to work with them, so that they can take them forward in the way that's right for them. So yes, the certification is about actually learning everything about soul signatures, so that you embody them for you first, but then you can also work with other people. And that's, if I had an overarching mission, that's my mission. It's to get as many people certified with soul signatures as they possibly can, because that's the way they start to fly within the world. And that's the way that we start to really align to that divine energy of soul and start to live that within life. And maybe we change the world. Maybe we don't change the world in my lifetime, but maybe with all of the work that we do, and it's like anything else, isn't it? There are all sorts of different things that we can tap into that help us to really start to get rid of everything that we're not and start to lean into who we are, but also lean into the person that we know we can be. So not just the person that we are right now, but really lean into the person that we know we can be and the person that we know that we can become. And so soul signatures are a really energetic way to do that, but they also bridge that kind of energy and belief, energy and mind. So they really work from a whole body perspective. But the certification was really that was leaping and allowing my wings to open as I leapt to really bring that to the world in the way that I needed it to. Yeah.
I love it. And listening to you, there's just this passion. It's the beautiful ripple effect, isn't it? If you can encourage more and more people to embrace leaping into your certification, then the ripple effect of that work is just beautiful to watch it unfold.
Yeah, it connects you into you in a way that other things don't, actually.
Yeah, and it's super unique. It's channeled. It's like nothing else, and that's the beautiful piece around it. It's totally unique from your soul, and it's going to help the people how they interpret everything that they learn and how they ripple, and it's just gorgeous, isn't it? So we could talk, like I said before we even put on that we were going to talk for a couple of hours. We've already talked for quite a while, so let's just wrap up. All of the information, all of the details of how to get hold of Nick and any of the things that she's talked about, her one-to-ones, her group, or the certification, they'll all be underneath the podcast. So please reach out and go and follow and reach out to Nick if you are curious in any way, shape or form. She's super open, super honest, and be there for a conversation with you without a doubt. So I've got two questions left. One is around a book, like I ask everybody. But the first one before that is, what do you feel, because my podcast is becoming fearless, what do you feel in a very human way was the biggest fear, because you and I have got, a past, the biggest fear that you have worked through, overcome, moved through to be able to be who you are now?
Judgment. And I think that's both judgment from other people, because I did spend a lot of my life being a people pleaser. I spent a lot of my life trying to fit in. I spent a lot of my life wanting to belong, until I realized that actually I had to belong to me first. Otherwise, I just didn't belong anyway. So judgment from other people, definitely. And that has, it's easy to say it's limited me, and maybe I would be doing it earlier. But actually, I believe that we have a journey, and I wouldn't be the person I am now if I hadn't worked through all of that. So judgment from other people, but also judgment from myself. Actually looking in the mirror and facing my own judgment about who I was, who I wasn't, who I should be, who I shouldn't be, and actually really doing the work in that way. That's been the thing that has really enabled me to leap. And that's been the thing that's enabled me to become, I won't say totally fearless, because I still think there's loads of work to do, but that's enabled me to become a little bit less fearless and to meet fear more actively, so that as I'm holding that energy when fear rises, I'm also holding the space of who I really am and what I'm really here for. So I'm not making the decisions based on fear in the same way that I would have done even 3 years ago. Yeah. So it's that judgment, and it's actually stepping back from that in both aspects, outside of myself and within myself as well.
And I have watched you absolutely flourish. I absolutely adore you on multiple levels because I've watched all of this beautiful essence of you and soul of you get out into the world. And I just like secretly cheering in the background going, yay! I'm so excited for my podcast buddy getting it all out in the world. I am immensely proud because I will say that to everybody. To be in it, to be the person that you really are here to be. Some of it's bumpy and some of it is immensely joyful, but actually the journey, the destination is so fulfilling. It really is. I wouldn't have it any other way. And when I see people that are going through it, I just absolutely hold my hat out to them. So let's cut it shorter than 3 hours. Let me ask you the last question. Ask you the last question, which is what is a book that has made an impact in your journey so far?
I think there are lots of books. I'm sure you're the same. But the one that really stands out for me is The 7 Spiritual Laws by Deepak Chopra, because that helped me at the time. And I probably read it about 15 years ago now, 16 years ago. But at the time, it really helped me understand the quantum field. It helped me understand energetics in a different way, which started me looking at myself and how my thoughts, my energy were influencing my environment, but also how my energy could impact and shift what I was actually doing, what was coming up for me. So at the time I read that, my mind was blown and it was like, oh my God, this makes sense. And I think I'd been experiencing stuff in a similar way, but suddenly reading that, it was like, I know this. Oh my God, this makes sense. Yes, this is what I'm doing. This is why this isn't working. This is why this is working. And it was just that moment of, yeah, wow, all of this makes sense. Yeah. And that was really impactful for me because it just shifted my whole perspective about everything. Yeah.
I love it when a book does
and it's
that.
A great
it's really
book.
Powerful, isn't it?
Yeah. It is, and it's small, so it's easily digestible, easily readable.
Oh, epic. That sounds great. We haven't had anybody say that one yet. So I will put the link to that book as well below underneath the podcast for all of Nick's details as well. So thank you so much for this chat. I have loved it. I have struggled to remain in my seat. I am really excited about what's to come and all of the goodness that is unveiling as we speak in all of the guises, in all of the realms, in all of the spaces for you and the journey and everybody that comes into your world. So thank you so much. I have really appreciated you being a guest.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy to be here and so lovely to chat with you. It's been great, Charlotte. Thank you.
You are so welcome. So take care, everybody, and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. I hope that you're feeling energized, fearless, and inspired to take action today to stand in your greatness. I share even more tools and resources on my I Dare to Leap email newsletter. By signing up, you not only get early access to the I Dare to Leap products and services, but you also get brand new podcast episodes delivered straight to your inbox every Monday, meaning you'll never miss your weekly dose of becoming fearless energy. Sign up now at www.idaretoleap.com/newsletter or click the link in the show notes below.